Okay, so let's talk about your simple vector project. What I want you to do is create a very simple vector design. It does not have to be anything complicated. I don't want you to overthink it. I don't want you to overcomplicate it. I want you to find a design online and I want you to recreate it using Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go through, I'm going to find a vector design that I like. I'm going to bring it into Illustrator, into a blank document, and then we will go from there. So first let me start in Illustrator. I've got a few files open here, so I'm just going to exit out of those. This works the exact same way as Photoshop. You can hit the little X on the tabs and it'll get rid of things. So this will be your base setup. I've got some different things up here, but that's just because I've had them open. So first I want you to hit Create New, and I want you to create a new document. This should look very familiar because this new document dialog is the same as Photoshop. So you're going to call this your name, or in my case, I'm going to use my name, dash vector. I want you to make this into inches, and we're going to go with 2 inches by 2 inches. I'm going to leave everything else the same. Color mode should be CMYK if it's not, but everything else is the same, and hit create. This is what you should have, a basic square shape. So now I'm going to go into my Chrome and I'm going to find a vector image. You can go up here and you can type any kind of vector that you want to. So for instance, if you want to draw somebody's logo, that's fine. Whatever kind of floats your boat as far as a vector design. If you want to just type the word vector and see what you get, that'll work. But I'm going to use this little bee design. Now I'm just going to click and drag this over. I'm less worried about the size of the images because I'm not going to actually use this image. This image is just a template for now. So I'm going to zoom in, getting my zoom tool, click, hold, and drag to the right, and look at my image. Now you can see that this is pixelated, and by turning it into something that's actually vector, I'm going to create something much more interesting. So I'm going to grab my pen tool here, and I'm going to start clicking, holding, and dragging around using the click and drag method to create this overall look. Now as you see, while I'm drawing this, it's slowly filling up with that white shape. And I don't like that. That gets in my way, and it's honestly just kind of annoying. So if I want to get rid of that at any point, I can always come over here to my color picker at the bottom of my toolbar and hit none on this. If my stroke is too large, I can click off of this, click back on it with my selection tool, and I can shrink the stroke down. If I make a mistake and I click off and if I'm no longer selected in this shape, I can click back on my last anchor point and it'll allow me to keep drawing. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to keep kind of drawing through this. If I make a mistake, Command Z will take you back, just like Photoshop. So I'm going to keep drawing through this and creating this overall look. Now there are some different tools that you can use and kind of come up with an easier way of doing things, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. I also want you to keep everything one color. So as you see, this one is 2 colors. It's black and it's yellow. Really it's 3 because there's white involved as well. But I'm not going to worry about that so much. Alright, so I'm going to make these little antennae real quick. Coming around. And down to the head. Now, one of the tricks that I showed you in the drawing tools is if you get to a point like this and it no longer lets you draw like you want to, you can always click right back on that anchor point and that'll kind of free you up to make the shape that you want. If you make a mistake, again, Command Z. Alright, so we've been through the shape builder tool a little bit. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to use those shape builder tools and the Pathfinder panel in order to cut out this white area right here. Because if you notice that when I click on this and I flip my color here, it turns the whole thing black. And it'll look like that other shape disappeared, but it didn't. It's just black stroked with no fill. So if I select both of these shapes, because the last one I drew was the inside one, Whatever shape's on top is the one I want to cut out. So I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to go to my Pathfinder panel right here, and I'm going to use my subtract minus, my minus front tool. And that'll cut a hole in that shape. So now I've got the body of my bee. I've got the face of my bee. I need these little stripes on the bee. So I'm going to draw those out real quick. And I want you to notice that I'm not so worried about the black fill coming in here, because at the end of the day, I need this to be black anyway. So I don't want to use any yellow on this. I want to create all one color. Black is my color I'm choosing. You can pick a different color if you would like. That's not going to bother me. So creating these little strips to create my bee. Now, when I'm finally done, all these shapes are going to be separated shapes. They're not going to be one vector. They're going to be multiples. In fact, 6 vectors in total. There's the face, the wing and body, and then 4 of these stripes. So for example of that, if I click on this and move it, it moves. If I click on this and move it, it moves. But if I select all of this, and in fact, now that I've got it finished, I'll do this real quick before I do that. I'm going to select everything and just show you the difference. If I move this all over to the side of this gray area, you can see I have this white picture of the bee. If I delete that, I've now got just my vector. So when you're finished, delete the picture. I don't need that. But you'll see that I have multiple shapes overlapping each other. So in that same Pathfinder, I'm going to unite all my shapes. Bam. Now I have one shape. It's a cute little bee. When I move it, it moves all together. I can't separate them, and it looks good. Now you can do this using your pen tool. You can do this using your pencil tool, your blob brush. Don't use the paintbrush. But you know, whatever kind of drawing tool works for you in order to create this. That was a simple vector I created in just a couple of minutes here. You can certainly do the same. If you want something as simple as what I had, that's perfectly fine. If you want to do something more complicated, if you want to challenge yourself, try some logos that you'll see out there. No Nike logos, nothing too simple. Okay, I don't want an Adidas logo. But if you want to draw out the NBA logo, that's a little bit more complicated and looks pretty good. If you want to go crazy, type in Golden State and draw out this logo using white and black only. That's a challenge. If you want to go extra nuts, type in something even more complicated, like the KFC logo or the Zaxby's logo. And you'll see that those are much more complicated to draw out. So push yourself a little bit. No Nike logos or anything simple like that. Okay, let's be real. It takes 2 seconds to draw a swoosh, right? We're not doing that. So I need something a little more complicated than that. But otherwise, it's up to you. Whatever kind of vector you want to draw out. I would look at this bee as kind of as simple as I want you to go. Don't go any simpler than that, all right? So create your vector logo, and today I need you to turn in the Illustrator document. And to show you how to do that, all you have to do is go up to the top, File, Save As, just like Photoshop, okay? It should be called yourname-vector.ai. AI is an Illustrator document. Adobe Illustrator is what that stands for. Save it to your desktop, and then hit Save. If it asks something like this, just hit Replace. I'm not going to hit it because I don't know what that's going to override. If something else comes up, just hit OK, OK, and then it'll show up on your desktop looking probably something like this. Oh, that's my Charlotte Hornets logo. So it'll look like this. That's the type of file that you need to turn into today's classroom, today's Canvas assignment. Once you've done that, you're good for the day. In fact, you're good for the week. All right, thank you so much for keeping up with me this week. I know Illustrator can be a bit of a headache, but I promise you it's the most rewarding program once you get used to it. You're going to have a ball with Adobe Illustrator. All right, next week we'll step into something a little bit more complicated. So keep your heads right and keep moving on.